This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
And now, a message from McAfee.
I'm not a real kid.
And I'm not a real grandpa.
We're deep fakes.
And we're making it harder to tell what's real online.
The good news? McAfee can help. McAfee's scam detector automatically identifies text and email scams and even deepfakes.
So if you whippersnappers meet one of us, you'll know.
If they're faking it, they're not making it past us. Get award-winning scam detection today. McAfee.com/keepitreal.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast, home of the world champions, Chelsea. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
So the game just finished roughly 10 minutes ago. Bournemouth 0, Chelsea 0. A strange old game, if I'm honest. I thought it was much the same that we saw against Leeds United on Wednesday night, so pretty unimpressed for the most part, I have to say. There wasn't a lot going on that made me feel as though it had a massive reaction. The team selection was much more to our liking, I must say. It felt more like the sort of Chelsea team I want to see play on a regular basis, but just no real cutting edge today. We just looked off it. Much the same we did against Leeds. It's just been a real strange couple of games. We've obviously had the two home matches against Barcelona and Arsenal. And some good performances before that as well, to be fair. And I have to say, December and January don't seem to be Chelsea's months, do they? We often are poor, and again, we were pretty poor again today. A 0-0 draw away at Bournemouth isn't the worst result, and teams will go there and have gone there already this season and will drop points. There's no question about that. But it was just a real shame that Chelsea's lack of real threat was therefore to see again. I mean, Palmer's coming back from injury, so you're not expecting him to do wonders, I suppose. You think he's back fully fit, but it does take a while to bed in. And of course, Delap going off injured, falling on, or Senesi falling on him from a corner. And it just felt like a little bit, here we go again. Delap looks like it could be a few weeks, if I'm honest with you. Unless I'm mistaken, it looks like it could be a dislocated shoulder or maybe a collarbone, which will be a little while, you would think. So that number 9 position becomes a real issue. It's not been solved, is it? I mean, Delap, for all his hard work and hunger and stuff that we saw last year for Ipswich, has just failed to deliver so far. I think it will come. I don't think I'm not a person that's out on him by any means, but there are times when I watch him and I just think he's more interested in having a fight than he is having a football. And today he was just having a real ding-dong with a centre-half from Bournemouth, Senesi, and he just never really, he didn't seem to concentrate on his own football, which is a real shame. And having scored that goal against Barcelona, I thought just maybe that he might go on a little run here. And I could see him scoring against Leeds, and I could see him scoring against Bournemouth today and causing them a few issues. But yeah, I'm sure they'll come. I'm sure those goals will come. But for the time being, it's been a real disappointment, which is a shame for him. As for the first half, I'll keep it reasonably short, but Cucurella, obviously a good cross from Neto, deep cross from Neto, and Cucurella heads over from, it wasn't a sitter by any means, but I would have liked to have seen him test the goalkeeper from where he was. And then after that, it was just all Bournemouth, and they had shot after shot after shot, and Sanchez was in fine form. He managed to parry and turn away a lot of the shots that Bournemouth had. Obviously, Semenyo had a goal disallowed after 3 minutes, which was a result for us. I think if we'd gone 1-0 down, then it would have been a real mountain to climb. Although sometimes goals change games for the better on occasions. And if they had gone 1-0 down, it would have been interesting to have seen their reaction, particularly after the Leeds game. But it wasn't to be, and it stayed 0-0. And it was just a case of them pot shotting. They were getting in amongst us quite easily. I felt like the midfield wasn't getting tight enough to people. But overall, I thought that Bournemouth were far the better team, and we had no complaints. Had we gone in losing 1 or 2-0, we couldn't have any complaints. And no real standout players in that first half. I felt as though maybe Neto always seemed to be a problem. He does seem to, for a lot of sides, he manages to kind of put some good crosses in and make work a yard of space for himself. But again, overall, not a lot to say in the first half. There's just nothing to kind of get my teeth into that's worthwhile listening to. As for the second half, I felt as though Chelsea came out much, much better. Of course, our sort of closest moment, you could argue, has been Garnacho hit the post, but when you look at it from a second angle or a second view, he sort of half turns his head and he jumps up. He's almost hoping to score more than knowing he was going to score. So when in reality, that's all you've got to say on the second half for the most part from Chelsea's forward line, etc. It kind of puts you into some kind of despair in some ways, but we kept moving the ball. We had moments. Cucurella got forward quite a lot. He seems to be getting into the box and then turning backwards and going back to the midfield players, which is a bit weird. Because I thought once or twice he got in behind the Bournemouth defenders and didn't have the confidence to go himself and actually either whip a cross in or go across the goalkeeper and shoot. I was hoping that it was going to be like the game we had last year when Christopher Nkunku got the winner. And we were going to play pretty poorly for the most part and then go away with somehow a 1-0 win. Like I said earlier, a draw at Bournemouth is not a terrible result, but it leaves us fourth with an 8-point gap to Arsenal. Not that we're looking at that too much, I'll be honest with you, but that's kind of where we are. And I think for myself, after the Leeds game in midweek, it really sent a shockwave through me. I felt as though maybe we'd turned a corner a little bit. And like I said, I'm not expecting Chelsea to win every game until now and the end of the season, but I expected a far better performance than we got against Leeds. And I suppose not losing to Bournemouth is at least something, but it does kind of show you where I am with the side more than what I thought we were maybe a couple of weeks ago. I would have liked to have at least won one of these games, but when it's all said and done, being in fourth position is about right for us. And I think Crystal Palace can go a point above us tomorrow with a win. But equally, there's so many teams, like we said a few weeks ago, there's so many teams in and around us. 1 point behind, 2 points behind, 3 behind, etc. So we know that a win takes you up a little bit. We know that a defeat takes you down a little bit. And until there is some real separation between all the sides, then for the time being, it's going to be a little bit like that. And 1 week you're going to feel like you're on top of the world in second position, and the week later, 2 weeks later, you could find yourself in sixth position, and it all being like, doom and gloom. So it's a tough one at the moment in the Premier League. It's very competitive, but I did feel as though Chelsea had come away from the pack a little bit, and I was hoping we were going to push on. And I'm sure like other Chelsea fans out there, you all feeling the same as me. But look, I think the club realistically want to finish fourth again. At least fourth, I should say. And that kind of feels like the way we're playing. They've got Everton next week at home. Again, it's a game that we're usually pretty good at, pretty solid in. And it's an opportunity to get around Aston Villa, Man City, and of course Arsenal. But obviously Arsenal are that much further ahead, and they are a much better team than us at the moment. I think we can safely say that. I know on a one-off game, we might have had the better performance and on the upper hand, but I think as a team looking at winning a league title, that they are far more likely to do it than someone like us. Although Man City have closed the gap again today and then with a win. So Arsenal haven't got it all their own way, which is kind of good, and it's good for the league that that's happening. I just wish it was Chelsea doing the chasing down and not Man City. But we have got to get over this period. Chelsea do tend to stumble around December and January and have done for many, many years. And if we're going to become a more serious team as time goes on, we're going to have to put this December and January form in a lockbox, put it to one side and bury it deep underground and start picking up real points at this time of year, because this always seems to be our Achilles heel when it comes to the wet and winter months. It was interesting to see the players at full time today. There was a few, Fofana being one of them, who was, clearly annoyed. I think he was frustrated with the performance, frustrated with himself maybe at times. Rob Sanchez went and picked him up to sort of show the team that, come on, we can do this. Don't be down about that. It's a point to point and move on type thing. But it was quite funny. I wonder if their expectations had changed just for a moment, and suddenly a loss against Leeds and only a point against Bournemouth makes you feel like maybe you've hit reality, which is kind of maybe how some of the supporters are feeling, including myself. Because the truth is, winning games against Barcelona and picking up a really good point against Arsenal when you only had 10 men and were far the better side, the highs are incredibly high as a Chelsea fan, and the lows are in the deepest, darkest depths of hell. And that's how I felt against Leeds United. I was so dumbfounded by a team that has been playing so well with such consistent form can suddenly play that poorly. And I think had we lost to Leeds, it wouldn't have bothered me so much if we played and given a proper performance. But sadly, we just seem to constantly throwing back-to-back games or 3 games in a row of complete crap. And we end up falling back down the table. And I think until we can solve that problem, we're going to continue to do that. I mean, it was interesting that Maresca was asked before the game about experience, and he sort of used it to his advantage, but I didn't love the answer, if I'm honest, because I thought it was a little bit of a cop-out. So he was asked about Tosin and his performance in the game and how poor he was and what have you, and he said he was quite honest, which I quite liked. He said, we had an experienced player in Tosin play the game who was, forgive me for the word he used, but basically he said he was terrible. Cut between the lines, he said he didn't play very well and he was poor. So why is experience better than youth? But that's a stupid answer, because Tosin's a poor player to start with. He's not Premier League level player, if I'm honest with you. Because as we all know, if you've got a really good experienced player in that position, or maybe playing as a number 9, Chelsea are a different team. So I didn't like the answer that he gave. He was trying to use it to his advantage by saying that I've got young players and they're really good and I should have played Josh Ashampong, which is fine. And I get that. And I like that answer too. But I just felt as though he was using the age thing as a bit of a cop-out. And I know he's not going to come in a press conference and say Tosin's awful and he was bloody terrible and the few games he's played recently have been absolutely terrible. I know that. I know he's not going to completely bash the guy. But let's say there was a 35-year-old Olivier Giroud out there. And I know he's older than that. I get that. But someone like him coming into this team now, when he came into the team when he did, under managers like Sarri, Conte, Thomas Tuchel, he would be a real asset to this team. Players like Garnacho and Esteval, Neto could trust him with the football. You could play into him. He'd be that wall. He'd be that player to hold the defender off and bring others into play. If you're telling me someone like that wouldn't be an asset to this team, you'd be absolutely mad. At the moment, off the top of my head, sitting here doing this voice note, I can't think of a player that could do that out there. There are plenty, I'm sure. But we've gone with a load of youngsters, which is fine, and I get the project and all the rest of it, blah, 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 blah. But I just think that having 1 or 2 players like an experienced Olivier Giroud type of player would really help this team. And yeah, I think in moments like today when the game isn't going quite your way at half-time, when you've been around the block like he has and won World Cups and European Championships with Chelsea, Arsenal, his club now, AC Milan, etc., that's an asset to you. Someone like Tosin, who's played a few games for Fulham and arrived on a free transfer, is not an asset to you. He's a bang average football player and he's playing in the Premier League and he's not very good at a big club. That's the difference in the experience take that I would have used. And Maresca kind of slammed that door shut of Chelsea buying someone with experience. But I think deep down, he must believe that he needs someone like that. But I've got to say, it was a fairly nothing game today. Bournemouth probably edged it, deserved it, if I'm honest with you. But we have managed to sneak away with a draw. I just wonder if Chelsea started a similar team against Leeds on Wednesday night, whether we could have somehow kept them at bay and kept a nil. That's another clean sheet for the partnership of Fofana, Chalobah and Rob Sanchez in the middle there, which is great. It's great to see, although Evan Nilsson in the first half will be absolutely wondering how he hasn't scored by missing from about 2 yards, although the ball did flash across the goal very quickly from Svenjo, but goodness me, we did get away well on there. But I just wondered if we'd held out for long enough against Leeds, whether we would have ended up getting on the right side of them and scoring the first goal ourselves. It would have changed the game completely, but I'm sorry. that midweek decision to play Badiashile and Tosin, the centre-back, was fucking awful. But there we go. We can't change it. It's done now. And it's a point on the board for Chelsea, a point on the road, and not the worst point in the world this week, considering how bad we were against Leeds on Wednesday night. But over to you, Chris, and I'd love to know what you thought of the game and the last two matches in general.
If we hadn't lost in midweek, then you'd probably say a draw at Bournemouth isn't a bad result. But we did lose in midweek, so it does feel a little bit disappointing. And 2 points from a possible 9 in the last 3 games has just, set us right back, isn't it, in terms of where we could have been in the league table. It was almost, with Arsenal losing, obviously to Villa, who were on an incredible run, but with Arsenal losing, I couldn't help but kind of pine for, what might have been if we'd sort of carried on the form that we felt we might do after that Arsenal game a week ago. Yeah, where we'd be now would be right in the conversation, but as it is, I think it's a reality check for us. In terms of the game itself, yesterday, I'm recording this on Sunday morning, not a huge amount to add on what you said there, Joe. It's certainly not a game that's going to live too long in the memory. I think it has to be said that the man of the podcast this season, Tosin, it's a positive, isn't it, that he was quite rightly left out of the squad completely by Maresca. An interesting one. Obviously, we have got a lot of centre-backs now. Everyone's fit, so apart from Cole, of course, but he has options. Interesting that he left him out completely. Interesting, as you said, that he was pretty honest and harsh about him in the press conference. I wonder where that leaves him, and I wonder if we are slowly going to start seeing the end of Tosin in a Chelsea shirt. I mean, it's early days, but certainly we would much prefer to see Josh Ashington out there getting those minutes that Tosin's been getting. So, yeah, I guess the next obvious moment we'll know really will be probably Cardiff in the League Cup in a couple of weeks to see what the lineup is there. But yeah, that was a positive. And again, like, the stats don't lie, do they? I talked about them in the preview to the game. Chelsea's stats with and without Tosin. Another clean sheet for that centre-back pairing of Fofana and Chalobah, probably the luckiest clean sheet they'll get in terms of the chances that Bournemouth missed, or half chances they nearly got on the end of. But we'll take it and move on. And Sanchez was really the standout, wasn't he, from a Chelsea point of view on the day. It was really great to see Palmer back, wasn't it? He's clearly not 100% yet, but you just saw those little moments, or a couple of little turns that he did to get Chelsea back on the front foot, playing it out wide and moving us up the pitch. I just hope he stays in the team now. I'd keep playing him. I'd certainly play him against Atalanta again, get him another hour there if we can, and just get him back up and running, because Chelsea will be, just as we know, a better team when Palmer's on the pitch. And we wait, obviously, for the Esteban-Palmer combination. But, yeah, that will definitely come. It will come. I just thought Chelsea, as we grew into the game a little bit in the second half and did get into attacking positions, just our decision-making was really poor. There were a few chances where Enzo Fernandez had a couple where he shot where he should have passed. One, he really should have played it out to Neto, and he kind of hit a shot on the half-turn, which he's never going to score with. And then very near the end, another one where he's hit it from the best part of 25, 30 yards when the right ball was to play into Esteban on the right. And little things like that, decision-making in the final third just wasn't good enough on the day. And yeah, I mean, it's the first time Chelsea haven't scored in the Premier League since the opening day against Crystal Palace. So I don't want to go overboard in terms of a reaction. But I do think it has raised a talking point that we need to talk about, and that is the strikers, the centre forwards. A bit of a bugbear of mine, I don't know if bugbear is the right word, but a bugbear of sorts is when your strikers aren't missing chances. And this goes back years, but I remember, I've talked about this in the pod before, I'm sure, but someone like Drogba in his first couple of years, where he wasn't perfect by any means, he was rough around the edges, but his problem was often missing chances. He'd get into great positions and just wasn't cool enough in front of goal. he ironed that out and became the player that we know. Now, the thing I've always felt is I'd much rather my striker missing chances, getting in the right position, showing he's always there, than not, because I think the goals will come. And again, you compare it to someone like Shevchenko, when he came to Chelsea, his legs had gone, so he just wasn't getting the chances, wasn't in the right positions. And when he did have a chance, he generally was pretty clinical, but he just wasn't getting there as much anymore. Now, my worry with the current set of strikers is they're not missing enough chances. They're not taking enough shots. They're not in the right positions. They're not being fed in the right ways. They're not being greedy enough. Whatever it is, and there's probably different reasons for each of them, actually. I think we know that João Pedro, he's almost a 9.5, isn't he? He's like somewhere between a 9 and a 10. He's not in the box enough to get on the end of things, to get you those scrappy goals. That'll be his reason. I think Delap, I mean, he just, like you said, Joe, he loves a fight. It's almost like his game is to win the battle against the centre-backs rather than win the game for Chelsea times. And I think that is, something he needs to sort out. But again, he's not having many shots. You're not watching him going, oh, he's always a pest. And Marc Guéhi, again, very raw still. There was a couple of chances yesterday where you're like, you're just not in the right position there. You've not read where that ball could go. There was a couple of times Garnacho put decent balls in the box and no one's gambled on it, things like that. And if you look at someone like a Haaland, let's use Haaland, he's obviously the best around, so he is the obvious one to go with. But you watch the highlights of a City game. Even when Haaland scores one or two, he'll miss 3 or 4. He gets plenty of chances, whether he scores them or not. And you just watch him go, well, the goal's going to come. It's just a matter of time until he gets a goal. Now, City obviously play to him. They put a lot of great service into him, all these kind of other things as well. But we've seen it over the years. If the top strikers just keep getting chances, keep getting shots away, you're hitting 4 or 5 shots a game, you're going to get 1 or 2 a game. It's just the nature of the game. And my worry with our current bunch is that isn't happening at the moment. And I think as long as that is the case, we're always going to be reliant on these wide men and other players chipping in, which has been a real strength this season for Chelsea, to be fair, is that goals have come from all places. So that's really good. But there are times when you just need your centre forward to be the man to make the breakthrough. And actually often it is in games like that where you're struggling a little bit. It's a 0-0. We had it with Nkunku last year, really great feet in the box to win the game for us, wasn't it? And that's lacking a bit yesterday. And when I look back at kind of great Chelsea strikers over the years, I mean, the two that come out immediately in the Premier League era of relatively recent times, last 20 years, is Diego Costa and Drogba. The two of them, they had big seasons where they scored lots of goals, but they were rarely, Haaland-esque numbers where they're hitting 30 plus, or Salah last year. What they would do is they'd score important goals. And I'll stick to the league. We know how good Drogba was in big finals, but in league games, Diego Costa would often score the first goal in the game or the equaliser. Those kind of big moments when you just need someone to get you a goal. Drogba was just the same, throwing himself at a corner to get you back in the game, those kind of things. And I think that's where a centre forward who's got that edge, a real X factor, I think does give you, it gives you something different as a team. And I think the reason I wanted to bring it up today is, and I want to throw this question to Joe in a minute, is, are we going to be in the position at the end of the season where we're still saying to go to the next level for Chelsea, which will be obviously a proper title challenge, are we league worthy winning? Do we still need a centre forward? And it was a question that I was really hoping we wouldn't be asking because of, how good João Pedro was in his first 5 to 10 games in the Chelsea shirt, certainly what he did in the Club World Cup and at the start of the season. I think we still probably do have lots of high hopes for Delap, of course we do. But I do think the question at the moment is are we one step away? And I look back to the summer, it was a really interesting bit of a Delap-led striker merry-go-round, wasn't it? Because it was pretty well publicised that just about everyone wanted Delap because it was such a good price, obviously coming from Ipswich for 30 million. Certainly the big three linked him with Chelsea, Man United and Newcastle. We got him, which then led to Man United spending significantly more on Šeško, who has, let's be fair, struggled so far. And Newcastle went a different way and went for Voltemede, if I've probably said his name wrong, from Germany, who we were linked to as well earlier in the summer before we got Delap. And early days, we're certainly not going to judge these guys at the start of December in their first season. I think you judge the signings over a couple of years, really. But you can see that out of the three, Voltemede is the one who is standing out at the moment and doing kind of exactly those things that I just said in terms of scoring important goals at the right times and getting Newcastle kind of into the positions they've been in. So early days, but I do think it's going to be one to watch as the season develops. And does probe an interesting question. Talking of experience, there was a player we were linked to at the end of the summer who I still wouldn't mind at Chelsea. So the rumours were that Ivan Toney, who is 29 now, obviously scored goals for fun at Brentford, has continued to do that in the Saudi League, might want a return to the Premier League. Obviously ahead of the World Cup, getting himself back in front of Tuchel and in his plans. And I just wonder if Chelsea might do a look at a short-term deal there in January, again, bringing a bit of experience and someone who just really does know where the back of the net is in the Premier League. I think it's unlikely, let's be fair. It's not the sort of deals that Chelsea have been doing in recent years, but it does take you back to kind of Giroud type era. And again, a player with a lot of personality, as long as you can keep him out of the betting shops. So yes, so the question I'm going to throw to you, Joe, is if Chelsea were to make a £100 million signing, let's call it a big signing in the summer window, where would you spend your money? Where would your big star signing be? We've talked before and kind of, I guess, assumed really it would be a centre-back or goalkeeper, because we've talked about that so much as being the key area. Are you still leaning that way? Is that where you think if you could just pick one dream signing for Chelsea, would it be at centre-back? Or are you thinking, no, we still need a centre-forward?
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jay Kelly, the new film from Academy Award nominee Noah Baumbach. George Clooney stars as an actor confronting his past and present on a journey of self-discovery, alongside Adam Sandler as his devoted manager. Critics are calling it a declaration of love to the chaotic art of filmmaking, with the Wall Street Journal praising it as a transcendent comedy drama. Jay Kelly is now playing only on Netflix.
Everyone wants the Emirates NBA Cup.
And things are heating up.
30 teams started.
Bang!
But only 8 have advanced to the single elimination knockout rounds. To survive, they'll have to be hungry, relentless, ruthless.
Are you kidding me?
They all want the cup, but only one team can claim it. Who will capture the cup? Emirates NBA Cup knockout rounds begin December 9th on Prime.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
Thank you very much, Christopher, for that voice message, because I've now got to decipher who would I pay £100 million for, and that is not an easy question. I think I'd probably start by ruling out certain positions. If we're going to spend £100 million, let's just say, you'd have to kind of go, and bear in mind, you can only choose one position here. I'd probably say I'd leave the goalkeeper. I'd probably leave the 2 centre halves, because you've got Fofana, Colwill, Chalobah and Achampong there. You could deal with that quite comfortably. And I think you would have to put it in the centre forwards position. I mean, Chris rightly says about the return on someone like Delap, Nicholas Jackson to some degree. Who, by the way, Chris did WhatsApp me and say, I forgot to mention that Nicholas Jackson was on loan, and would I be willing to kind of take him back as the replacement for, not the replacement for Delap, but work alongside him? I think that probably ship has sailed. I would suggest that Jackson probably wants out. He's probably had a taste of Bayern Munich or another team now, and he may feel as though he wasn't feeling the love at Chelsea. So he may seek new horizons, I would suggest, after this season, if Bayern Munich don't buy him. So I think a striker would be where I spend my money. I think Delap will eventually grow into someone decent, whether it's at Chelsea or somewhere else, I'm not too sure. I hope it's at Chelsea, but I think he's got a lot of potential. And again, the trouble with Chelsea is they buy lots of players with potential, and you hope they don't get kind of good and then they're not quite at the stage where we need them to be, so we then move them on, and then they then become fantastic players elsewhere. You don't want that to happen too often. But I think that's where I would spend my money. Now, looking around the leagues and looking around the clubs, the centre-forward position is really hard to pick out as a name that is reasonably gettable. So you think in the Premier League, Haaland, well, you're not going to get Haaland. Then you look at Liverpool, Ekitike and Isak. You're not getting either of them. Voltemada at Newcastle, you're not getting him. So you kind of go round the leagues and you say, well, who would I have? Arsenal don't really have one. Gyökeres, you could argue, is a 9, but I'm not very keen on him, and he wouldn't come to us anyway. This is their kind of backup striker, who is, again, a player that we've had and wouldn't have back. And then you've got Gabriel Jesus, who's always injured and not good enough. So even across the big teams, there's not like loads of players to choose from. And the ones that are there are already going to be sewn up for a few years. So you then sort of think, well, let's look outside the box. And there aren't that many players across Europe, really, who it's the sort of player that Chelsea would look to buy, if that makes any sense. The one that sort of stands out as a good fit, because we have quite a good Brazilian contingent, is Evan Nilsson, who played for Bournemouth yesterday. I think he's a very good player. I think he knows where the goal is. I think in the right team, he would be a very good 9. I think he's past the stage of developing. I think he's kind of pretty much ready-made to go into a team like Chelsea and be very, very good. And obviously, with the likes of João Pedro and Estevao, etc., he would fit beautifully into our team. Again, you've also got the Argentinian in Enzo, Ecuador with Caicedo. He could become a South American 11 quite soon. But I think he would be someone I'd be looking at as a very good fit for us. Then you kind of go, well, where's the money spent these days? Well, it is spent on wingers. It's a high percentage of what football is now. It's goals coming from the wide areas and those players being put in behind and used as like counter-attacking pawns in the way teams play now. And I think that when you look at across Europe, who would be potentially available for £100 million, Vinicius Jr. is clearly out of favour and out of the plans of Xabi Alonso. He still plays, but there's disharmony there. You wonder, would Real Madrid want to lose arguably one of their best players, or would they want to lose their manager? I'm not entirely sure. But I think last year there were lots of rumours that he was available, if for the right money. And you would think that if Chelsea had £100 million sitting in their back pockets to burn, he wouldn't be the worst player in the world, because he is a clear world-class player begging to be snapped up. And I would think that in the Premier League he would do very well. I think he's got a bit of an attitude, if I'm honest. I think he, a bit like Mo Salah you're seeing at the moment, not playing, and sometimes uses the media to kind of his advantage to sort of get a message across, to sort of say he's not very happy and, why am I not playing? Well, look what I've done for the club. But I think that he would be an exceptional player for somebody if eventually he does move from Real Madrid. I don't think they really want to lose him, but I think they'll lose him if he doesn't play. It's a simple fact. So, again, not a striker, like Chris asked me, in one position. This is 2 positions, I know, but if it couldn't be somebody like Evan Nilsson, and I wouldn't pay £100 million for him, by the way, because there are a real lack of number 9s. That's just the honest truth. There isn't anybody out there, barring somebody like Haaland, Ekitike or Isak, that I would pay £100 million for, quite frankly. There's nobody else in the Premier League that you'd be looking, staring down the barrel and going, yeah, I definitely want him. They're all much for muchness, but I think Evan Nilsson, I say for us, if you could get him for 40 or 50 million, I don't think that's a bad shout. And Chelsea's sort of squad as a whole, I think that we could we have players already in the system. Do you know what I mean? Penders, we know, is someone that's coming through. And if you imagine someone like Mark Gahey, who is available for 30 million quid, or maybe even less than that now, due to his current contract situation, if you could maybe go and get him for pennies on the dollar, then yeah, I'd absolutely go and do that, because you could get a player like Evan Nilsson, Mark Gahey, Mike Penders. Before you know it, the team looks really solid. Gahey and Colwill with the likes of Fofana alongside him. And, you know what I mean? That's a good team. That's a very good team. And I think that we have other options behind us. Chris is going to speak about a striker that we have at Strasbourg at the moment in his next voice note, which I think is very interesting, because there's rumours that he might be coming back in January, but I'll let him speak on that. We have sort of players everywhere. Paez is another one. And of course, Semenyo at Bournemouth, who is currently being touted around most Premier League teams as a potential suitor in January for around the £65 million mark. I don't see Chelsea doing that deal, because they're probably going to look at the likes of Neto, Garnacho, etc., going, is he much better than them? The jury would be out. He looks good in Bournemouth because there's not a lot else there. And even though I think Bournemouth are a good team, when it comes to world-class players, Semenyo is like way above all what they've got alongside Evan Nilsson. Personally, for me, you kind of go, if you're going to spend in that area, Vinicius Junior or someone would be the jump you'd have to make. Does that make sense? And I just feel as though we won't go after somebody like a Mo Salah because he's on £400,000 a week, and Chelsea won't do that. They've been burnt with Raheem Sterling before, who was still at the club coining a wage, doing absolutely nothing. So they're not going to want to go down a road where they get a player that is just kind of messing around until the end of his career, until he ends up going to Saudi Arabia or America, for example. So that would be my choice. It'd be somebody like Evan Nilsson to go alongside what we already have, of Vinicius Junior, if it went the £100 million mark, certainly, because we have good cover in all the other areas. But I'll let Chris sort of come back with an answer for himself and see what he thinks. But yeah, I think Chelsea as a squad, it is a good squad. I do love them, believe it or not. Sometimes I can get the hump with them like we all do. And I think it's more disappointment than it is anything else, because I know how good they can be. And then they put in these performances against Leeds and Bournemouth where you kind of go, oh, God. I just want them to get past this stage. I think there will come a point where they do get past this stage, but at the moment we're still very much in it, and it is frustrating. But Chelsea's squad as a whole is good. And I think with the players coming in the summer, some of the ones we've already purchased, like I've mentioned on the pod just then, I think the future's bright. But equally, I still want to see Chelsea compete for the top honours and not be accepting that third and fourth are good enough, because it's just not. And I do hope there's a plan in the background that we're not just sitting around going, let's just watch Man City and Arsenal and Liverpool collect all the trophies for the next 5 years while we learn, because I think we're good enough to compete for these trophies. We've proven it this season already against these sides, so I don't think we need to be scared of them or be worried about them. That is one fear I do have, is that we're doing this thing where we're turning over a lot of profit without actually turning over trophies. And Chelsea can argue they've won the Club World Cup, they can argue they've won the Europa Conference League, etc. So they can say they've won silverware with Maresca, but we're talking about the best type of silverware. Let's go and win the Champions League. Let's go and win the Premier League, FA Cup. And I think that's what I want us to go and do now going forward, is really compete high for these top honours and not let too many seasons drift on by where you're just happy to finish third and fourth, because that's not good enough for Chelsea Football Club, I'm afraid. But Chris, over to you, mate, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought exercise, isn't it? In terms of what a title-winning squad for Chelsea really looks like. I think we as fans have been there, right? We've seen it. At least most of us will have listening. Seen it a couple of times, seen what a title squad looks like. And I mean, I'm aware of the irony that I played a Gary Neville clip, 2 weeks ago, if that, actually, on the pod, and where he was saying that Chelsea were miles off. And then I was disagreeing, and then we went and lost at Leeds and drew at Bournemouth. So, yeah, I am aware of the irony of that. I would say that we're a bit closer, in my opinion, than Gary Neville thinks. I think that there's probably, in a starting lineup, 7 or 8, maybe even 9 players that you could see winning a league title at Chelsea. The question is, where are the missing 2 or 3? And yeah, you just get a smell, don't you? When you see a title-winning squad, you just have a sense of what it looks like. The biggest, we've done it a few times. The one that really jumps out to me is definitely that Mourinho step from 13-14, the little horses kind of season, which hopefully is where this team will go this year. That we finished third that year, didn't we? But could easily have been second, and we're in the title race until about 3 or 4 weeks before the end of the season. That was the Gerrard slip year, wasn't it? Where he slipped and Man City ended up winning the title, and Chelsea weren't a million miles off. Knocked out of the semi-final of the Champions League that year too. And you looked at that thinking what we were missing was a little bit of creativity and a proper title-winning striker. And if you remember that year, our strikers were Torres, Demba Ba and Samuel Eto'o. And Mourinho was quite open and feeling like none of them were quite good enough. We went out that summer and brought in Diego Costa and Cesc Fabregas. And within a month of the season starting, you were like, okay, we are the real deal here. And both of them started like a train and we never really looked back. I kind of think that I'm probably in agreement with you, Joe, in terms of a centre forward being the most obvious at the moment step that Chelsea need. My concern is I look at João Pedro and Delap and think, could I see them leading the line for us to win the title next year? And there's a massive doubt, isn't there? Both huge potential and both really good players in their own right. I think we've seen probably more in João Pedro of what the ability he has than Delap yet. Delap's very raw, but clearly with massive upsides. Evan Nilsson, I'm going to say no. 1 goal this season. He scored like that was no tomorrow at Porto, and I think in the Premier League hasn't been prolific, so I'm not sure he would be enough of a step up for me. The Premier League name that jumps out to me is maybe Mateta at Palace. And do you go and give them 100 million and come out with Gueye and Mateta? I know a few of my Palace supporting mates would not be happy if we did that. Again, Mateta's scored more goals than Evan Nilsson. He has his moments. He's probably more like a chaos maker in the box. He gives you those options that we probably don't have, where you can just put balls in the box. He's going to make stuff happen. So he would be in the Premier League, maybe one that I would look at. But do I see Chelsea signing him? He's 29, sorry, he's about to turn 29, I think. Probably not. The one, if I am allowed a dream signing, it would be someone I would bring back to the Premier League. So this will be my choice if we're playing this game. And it would be, following the Diego Costa route of going to Atletico Madrid, bringing a striker in, and it'd be Julian Alvarez, who has been just, electric ever since he went to Atletico. Was a player actually that I think quite a few of us liked at Man City. He just obviously was always second fiddle to Haaland there. And I think in being the number one man at Atletico has shown just what a good player he is. And I'd be asking Enzo Fernandez to have a word with him on international duty and see if he can bring him back. But in reality, 100 million probably doesn't get him. You're probably going to have to go bigger. And again, I don't know if Chelsea are doing that. But it's an interesting thought exercise. I think if Chelsea really want to really go for it next year, then I think there's probably a scenario where we have to get, 2 or 3 top players in. And I think Marc Gueye just still jumps out to me. He had a great game for Palace this weekend, scoring the winning goal. Yet again, he does turn up in big moments. And I just think he makes, as you said, Joe, just so much sense alongside the existing centre-backs we have at the club that I would love to see us go and get that deal done. And then it does give you probably funds to go and strengthen in other areas as well. But yeah, an interesting thought exercise and one that I'm sure we'll come back to as the season goes on. And hopefully João Pedro can step up in the coming weeks and maybe prove us wrong, because the Delap injury doesn't sound like it's going to be great. All rumours coming out, it's going to be weeks into months yet again for him, which is just, heartbreaking for him and really not ideal for the club. And as you teased earlier, Joe, I wonder if it does mean Chelsea will look at bringing in Amiga from Strasbourg a little bit earlier. He was due to join in the summer. Obviously part of the Blue Co group, so not a difficult deal for us to have done. And he's captain at Strasbourg now, has scored, again, plenty of goals in the French league. I just wonder if Chelsea might look at bringing that deal forward if they can. That's one to watch, because I think we've seen when Delap was out earlier in the season just how much we missed him. We were overplaying João Pedro. Marc Gui is still very, very raw, and it just creates a different problem for us, which with the amount of money we've spent and the size of the squad we have, and it's just not a great situation. So yeah, one to keep an eye on. I'm sure the rumours will be, we're getting towards the January window, so Chelsea are never far away from a transfer story, are we? Looking forward then to Atalanta on Wednesday night. They are struggling actually in the league. They're 12th at the moment in Serie A. Lost at the weekend to Hellas Verona, and it was Hellas Verona's first win of the season. They lost 3-1 there. In the Champions League, they have been better though. They've won 3, drawn 1 and lost, which is an identical record to Chelsea in the competition. So yeah, they've done their best business in Europe. Any trip away in Europe, as we know, is difficult. So I'd expect a tough night in Italy, but a really good opportunity for Chelsea, because if Chelsea can win at Atalanta, we have one foot firmly in the next round and being able to skip the qualifying stage as it is the last 32. It would mean really we need to win at home to Paphos after Christmas, and then a very handy ability to basically write off the last game of the group stage, which would be a very tricky game at Napoli. So really good opportunity for Chelsea on Wednesday to lay down a big marker before Christmas in Europe. I would expect Chelsea will go very strong. So I don't think it'll be too different from the team that we saw against Bournemouth, which was on paper one of our, pretty much as strong as you can go. I guess the interesting one will be up front, won't it? Because we saw, obviously we know it won't be Delap. So my guess would be João Pedro comes in with Palmer behind, and we maybe see a return to the team with Esteval. So maybe it is the first time to see Esteval and Palmer start a game together since Man United, where they lasted all of 3 minutes. But yeah, big night for us. We'll be back to reflect on it, and then obviously look forward to Everton at the weekend. I'll finish this week just by saying thank you for the lovely emails that we've been getting, and a special shout out to Joel Money and Chris Cornish for a couple of lovely emails last week. Honestly, these things really do make our day when we receive them. They're immediately shared on me and Joe's little WhatsApp group, and yeah, to everyone who's given feedback, it's amazing. So thank you for listening. Keeps us going. And yeah, if you ever want to email us at hello@1905podcast.com, we love to hear from you guys. And yeah, obviously I've got to ask, drop us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. But thank you to everyone for all your support. We will be back to reflect on that 3-1 win at Atlanta on Wednesday night. You heard it here first. See you next time. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.